Guys, welcome back to another video, and today I want to talk about 10 3DS games that I never finished, and hopefully it's implied that these are also games that I want to go back and finish. But anyway, as I mentioned previously in my last video, there were a lot of games on the 3DS that I started and never finished, and a lot of that is because the 3DS era for me was the first time in my life that I was buying a lot of new releases that I was excited for, and part of that's because I was a teenager. I finally had a little, part-time job, disposable income, and I was really getting into games more than I ever was before. And I was pre-ordering every single thing that looked interesting to me. And back then, 3DS games were only $40 each, so it was pretty affordable. I didn't really have any other expenses, just living at home with my parents, So I was buying a lot of games, and this meant that I was starting a lot of games for the first time. When I was a little kid, I would maybe get, 3 to 5 new games a year, and I would play those games all year. But this was different for me, and because of that, it led to me starting a lot of games and not finishing them. And the 10 games that I picked out here today, these are all games that I did enjoy. Just for one reason or another, I started them and didn't finish them. So without further introing, let's just get right into this list. So the first one I have here, and these are in no particular order, we have Dragon Quest VII. So Dragon Quest VII was a game that I was really excited for. The Dragon Quest series had always looked really appealing to me, and I had played a little bit of the remakes on the DS, but I was really excited to try a 3D entry in the series. I never had a PS2, so I didn't play 8 growing up or anything like that. We'll get to that one later though. So yeah, I picked this one up, and I got maybe 15-20 hours in, and I just stopped playing it for whatever reason. I know you can select job classes and stuff in this game, and I thought that looked really cool, but I didn't even get far enough to do that. Dragon Quest VII is one that I really want to get back to, and I'm a little nervous, honestly, because people say this is like the longest game in the series, so that's kind of what's been stopping me from going back to it, because I'm probably going to want to start a new game, because I don't remember anything that was going on in the story or anything like that. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Dragon Quest VII, because I think it looks cool. I love the designs of the characters. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's just classic Akira Toriyama goodness in that regard. But yeah, gonna have to get back to it one day. I don't know when, but I will. I'm slowly playing through the Dragon Quest series. It is, I will say, so I don't look like a complete Dragon Quest hater or whatever, I'm not. In the last, 2 years, I've beaten Dragon Quest 4, 5, and most recently 9 on the original DS, and I even just beat Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince on the Switch, so I am a big Dragon Quest fan. It's just I have a problem with long RPGs and starting them and not finishing them. Which brings me to another Dragon Quest game here, sadly, Dragon Quest VIII, and I know that this is supposed to be one of the best games, if not the best game in the series. And my story with this one is that I started it actually right before Dragon Quest XI was coming out on the PS4, so this was back in 2018. And I was really excited for Dragon Quest XI, because I was like, alright, we're back on home consoles. We're back in, amazing HD graphics. This was actually the first HD Dragon Quest game, and it looked beautiful. It still looks beautiful to this day. So in preparation for Dragon Quest XI, I picked up Dragon Quest VIII on the 3DS, and I got about 10 hours in, and then my pre-order for Dragon Quest XI came in. I was like, well, of course I want to start the new, shiny Dragon Quest XI, So I started that, and I will say, I finished Dragon Quest XI, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. But unfortunately, I did put down Dragon Quest VIII and never went back to it. So once again, much like 7, I'll probably just have to start a new game eventually when I'm not playing any other JRPGs, and have to see both of those through to the end. Alright, and next up here, we have another big heavy hitter JRPG. Oh, spoiler alert, literally every single game in this top 10 is a JRPG, because for some reason, I love JRPGs, don't get me wrong. During this era specifically, I would start every single one that came out and just never finish any of them. And it was so bad, and it kind of led to me taking a break from the genre for a while. But the next one here we have is the original Bravely Default, which is honestly, what it really is classic Final Fantasy in a more modern, streamlined form. And I really loved what I played of the original Bravely Default. And since then, we've gotten Bravely Second, which was a direct sequel on the 3DS, and we've even gotten Bravely Default 2 on the Switch. All three of these games I really want to get back into and play, but I feel like I shouldn't touch either of the sequels because I never finished the first one. I've heard weird things about the first one getting really, like, tedious towards the end, but I don't know, I feel like a lot of JRPGs, you could say, get tedious towards the end with big, weird final dungeons that take too long and stuff. But I don't know, I really enjoyed what I played of this game, and the only reason why I didn't finish it was there was probably just other games that were coming out that caught my attention, and it's really sad. I did this so much back then, but I have to say, in the past, like, 3 years, I've gotten really good at seeing games that I'm truly enjoying through to the end and not starting too many games at once. Usually I'm playing like 2 or 3 games at the same time, usually one RPG and then like a couple of games that can be something else. But back in these days, man, I was just going from one JRPG to the next and not finishing any of them, and it was bad. It was bad. It was unhealthy. I'll say that. It was very unhealthy. But yeah, Bravely Default, gonna have to, once again, probably just start a new game, because I picked this up like day one, and that day one, what would that have been? It looks like 2014 here in the States, so that was 10 years ago. That is so crazy. Well, maybe now that it's the 10-year anniversary, I'll pick it back up. Maybe, I don't know. But I want to, trust me, I want to. Anyways, on to the next one here, and I feel like this video is just gonna make people so mad. I'm actually kind of scared to post this, because another one here that I haven't finished, and this one sucks because I started this one twice. The game doesn't suck, the situation is what sucks, don't worry. Fire Emblem Awakening, many people's favorite Fire Emblem game. And you know what, maybe mine too. So I started this game when it first came out, and the funny thing is, most people are always like, oh, Fire Emblem Awakening was my first Fire Emblem game. Not for me. I played Fire Emblem the Shadow Dragon back on the original DS, and that's what introduced me to the series. But Fire Emblem Awakening felt, and still to this day feels, like the first modern Fire Emblem game. It was really like a transition from classic Fire Emblem to modern Fire Emblem. And I started this game, and I got to about the halfway point, and I stopped. No real reason, I just stopped playing it. And then, before I moved to Japan, so this would have been 4 years ago, I started it again, got a little bit farther than the first time, and I stopped playing it again because I'm a sick individual. And yeah, I loved the game. It's probably one of the best Fire Emblem games ever, but for some reason I just never finished it, and I'm a bad boy. And then continuing on the Fire Emblem trend, here is another one. We have Fire Emblem Fates, the duology here. Fire Emblem Fates was an interesting one because it was the first time, the only time really, that they released 2 Fire Emblem games at the same time, like a Pokemon game, 2 different versions, except it wasn't 2 different versions, it was actually like 2 separate campaigns. Nowadays we just have, you know, like the one on Switch, 3 Houses, where all 3 campaigns are just on one cartridge. But Fire Emblem Fates was really unique. I really loved how the one family in Birthright, they kind of had like a samurai theme about them, at least from what I remember, and I thought that was really cool. They were kind of like an Eastern culture, and I really liked that. I thought that was unique for the Fire Emblem series, which is usually very like Western medieval type of knights and armor type of thing. But with this one, I remember thinking some things about it were a bit weird, like with the other game where you're part of in Conquest, when you're with like the kind of more evil looking family. I didn't really love how like your sisters were like always flirting with you. I always thought that was a bit strange, honestly, and that kind of put me off a bit. So I'd say if there was a reason why I dropped Fire Emblem Fates, it was probably because I remember thinking it was a bit like Now, I know the word cringe is kind of overused these days, but it was kind of like cringy anime tropes. And don't get me wrong, I like anime just as much as the next guy. But with this game, I was like, it was putting me off a little bit. Now, that's not to say that I never want to play it again, but I would probably prioritize Fire Emblem Awakening over returning to Fates. But let me know down below what your thoughts on Fire Emblem Fates are. I know it's kind of the black sheep of the series, at least from what I've seen people say online. But yeah, those are the Fire Emblem 3DS games. And then the third Fire Emblem 3DS game, which was a remake. I'll just mention this really quick. I never even started that one. I do have a copy though, but like I said, I'm very sick like that. I just was pre-ordering everything. But to be fair, I am thankful that I was pre-ordering every RPG that was coming out on the 3DS back then, because a lot of them have become quite expensive. And it's sad to see for people who want to have a physical collection of these games. But I don't want you guys to think that like I was out there buying all these up because I knew that they were valuable. This was like I was buying these games like day one, so they were just, you know, MSRP $40 games. I wasn't like I was never a reseller or anything, and I never would become one because resellers, I really don't like you guys. That's all I'll say about that. But anyways, on to the next game. Next we have, no, this is another big one. And I'm gonna cry a little bit, actually. Not really, but just because I'm upset with myself. This whole video, if you haven't noticed, I'm just really upset with myself, and this is kind of a therapeutic way for me to deal with my self-hatred and my self-loathing. But anyways, next up we have Shin Megami Tensei 4. A very, very big RPG, especially in the early days of the 3DS. This one came out all the way back in 2013. I can't believe that was 11 years ago. Where has the time gone? This is so crazy, just thinking about that. But anyway, I remember starting this game on a family road trip. I believe it was the last family road trip I ever went on, and it actually wasn't when the game first came out. I did get it day one. Once again, I left it sealed for a long time. It's not sealed anymore, as you can see, but I'd say this was probably 2017 or 2018. We went on a family road trip to visit my grandpa in South Carolina, and I started this game on that road trip. However, I have this thing where when I'm looking down at a handheld device in the car, I start to feel very sick. And I played the first couple hours of this game, and I started feeling very sick, and I didn't play my 3DS basically for the rest of the 12-hour car ride to South Carolina. And I kind of associate this game with feeling sick, and it really sucks, but I do love the Shin Megami Tensei series, and I respect it, I revere it. It's a very, very good series of games, but 4 was unfortunately one that I dropped really soon. I only was like maybe 2 or 3 hours in. I think I barely even saw any combat. It was mostly just like visual novel text and story and stuff. So yeah, unfortunately I'll have to get back to that one again, just start fresh. But I do think the game looks great. The graphics are amazing for the 3DS, honestly. A lot of these games had really beautiful graphics, but this one in particular was really good. But anyways, yes, SMT4. And honestly, pretty much all the games in the SMT series are ones on my backlog, except for the few that I have played, but I won't get into those right now, except for this one here, which this one I'm not as guilty about. This is SMT Devil Survivor Overclocked, which was a remake of a DS game. This is a really cool entry in the series because it was more of a strategy game. This game I remember really enjoying. It's this cool strategy game. It's really difficult. You're collecting monsters and you're like bidding on them online, and it's this cool like game within a game type of thing. The story was really good. The characters were cool. It's so edgy, the music is awesome, and I remember being really into the story. Like, it was one of those games where I always really wanted to see what was gonna happen next, and then I just stopped playing it, and it sucks because I never got to see what happened in the story. So this is one that I'll definitely want to replay. And yeah, I mean, what else do I say? I'm saying the same thing with all these. Yeah, I liked it, and I wanted to replay it. We got 3 left. I'm starting to worry that this video is a bit redundant. I'm talking directly to you, me. I don't know if they're gonna like this one, but that's okay. This is like, it's like therapy for me, honestly, just talking about this stuff, getting it off my chest, maybe like confession for those of you who go to church and all that. But this is my church, the 3DS, because next we have Oasis. Now this is a game that I feel like people don't even know about this game. This is a really cool, absolutely beautiful action RPG by people who worked on the Secret of Mana games. And it has this really cool kind of gameplay loop where you're going out into the world and exploring dungeons, finding items, meeting people, and then going back to your town, this like home base, and then you're building up this town, building new shops. And it was really cool, and so much fun. And you know why I think the reason why I didn't finish it was, this came out in 2017. Very, very close. In fact, maybe even after the Switch came out. I actually can't remember. But as you can probably guess, I was playing this game, and then I got the Switch, and all I wanted to do was play the Switch and play Zelda, which was my big game that everyone got with the Switch. So yeah, that's really the only reason why I stopped playing Oasis. Otherwise, I remember thinking I was like, no one is talking about this game, and it is probably like one of the best games on the 3DS if you're into RPGs, which I think most people who played the 3DS were into JRPGs. But this is a really good one. Sadly, I think it's getting a bit expensive. So once again, like I always say, you know, just play these games however you can. You know, this is me telling you, like, don't worry about having a physical collection, because the way resellers and everyone jack up the prices, the market is so messed up on old games, and these games aren't even that old. I feel like things become expensive so much quicker nowadays. This is derailing, I know, but I need to make a whole video about my thoughts on that sometime, because like, just play games any way you can. If you know what I mean, good for you. If you don't know what I mean, look up H Shop on Google. That's all I have to say. All right, next up. You know what? Actually, I'm going to save that one for last. Next up, Mario and Luigi Dream Team. What am I doing sleeping on this game about sleeping? I'm crazy over here. But I didn't sleep on it. I actually did play quite a bit, and I really enjoyed it. I'm a huge fan of the Mario and Luigi games. I've played through the first one on GBA several times throughout my life. I think that was probably one of the first RPGs I ever played. It's probably what got me into the genre, honestly. And then Partners in Time on the DS and Bowser's Inside Story on the DS. Perfect. I love both of them. I know people hate on Partners in Time for whatever reason. I don't know what you guys are talking about. That game's amazing. I love all those games so much. So I was so excited when Dream Team came out on the 3DS, and I was having a great time with it. But once again, I got to a certain point and I just stopped playing it, and I really don't know why, because usually Mario stuff I finish. Like, me and Mario games, we just click. We always have. I usually don't have that issue, but for whatever reason with Dream Team, I did. So unfortunately, it is in this list of games I need to finish, but I will get to it. I promise. And the final one here. Now this one's a bit controversial, but not in the way that you might think. This game is controversial because I didn't like it. Isn't that crazy? Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. And a big part of the reason why is because this game came out at a time where I was starting to feel like Mario games were not as good or as interesting as they should be or could be. I was very disappointed in Paper Mario Sticker Star. I was very disappointed in Paper Mario Color Splash. I played like 5 hours of it, and you know, I feel like I might enjoy that one now, but back then I was very bitter about it not being a more traditional Paper Mario game. I was very disappointed that the only 2D Mario games we were getting were New Super Mario Bros. And I was very, very disappointed that the only 3D Mario games we were getting were basically linear 2D games, but in 3D. I know. Looking at myself now, seeing my reflection, a 27-year-old man getting upset about the state of Mario games, you know, I don't want to be that person anymore. So I've kind of just let it go, because Mario games are actually pretty good now. I loved Wonder, I loved Odyssey, and they're remaking some of the, some of the great RPGs now. So I'm not upset anymore. I'm not upset anymore. But back then I was. And back then I wasn't a 27-year-old man. Back then I was like an early 20s angry boy who really was disappointed because Mario's like one of my favorite things ever, And I felt like they were doing my boy wrong. So anyway, Mario & Luigi Paper Jam. I played it and I was like, this is just more of the generic Mario garbage that they've been pushing out for the whole 3DS era for the most part. And I really didn't like it. And this one I stopped playing because I didn't like it. But I think that if I went back to it nowadays with my new perspective on, hey, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be so upset about a company not making Mario games the way me, a genius, would make Mario games. That's sarcasm. Maybe I would feel differently about it now. So I'm gonna go back and do that eventually, because I don't know what I was gonna say, but I just think that would be a cool thing to do. But anyways, guys, those are 10 3DS games that I never finished. Please let me know your thoughts on these games that I never finished, and let me know if there are any games for the 3DS that you had similar stories about, where maybe you bought and you didn't love it, or you bought them and with the intent to play them all the way through, and for whatever reason it just didn't happen, because I know that still happens to me a lot, but I'm working on it. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.